Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Best Practices Podcast. I'm your host, Kirk Barrett, and thank you guys so much for joining me. You are listening to the #1 podcast for dental practice owners, where we come to you each and every week with dentistry's best experts, and you're going to love today, with proven practical tips, tools, and coaching for your practice. Those are for the serious students. Everybody who wants to grow a successful practice. Now, if you're here for the first time, I want to do two things. Number one, I want to congratulate you for showing up to an incredible community. And the second thing is I want to welcome you to just a learning resource center. I want you to look at this as a place where you come every single week and we don't have any egos here. We're all just learning together, and we'll ask really great questions, and hopefully you guys get the answers. Now, if you're here for the first time, I also want to encourage you to subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. I don't care if it's Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, and make sure you subscribe so you get the new episodes every single week. And we take a lot of notes. So you're going to see, I'm going to take some notes. We have our backstage crew, they take notes. So we're going to take copious notes and get you guys show notes, things that our incredible guests share today. And throughout all the episodes, you'll have links and things that you'll be able to access. So you can find those all in the show notes. And it's just so much fun because getting started in this profession, I've always enjoyed the CE piece, and I want to introduce my guest today because this is going to be fun for me. I didn't know you, Nate. Like, I had heard your name, and actually, we have a lot of mutual friends, and we're going to talk about the evolution of this. But Bill Robbins was one of the key people. He's like, "Do you know this guy?" I go, "I've heard his name." He's like, "Dude, watch this." So Bill Robbins and I would be texting during the day or at night. He's like, "Watch this," and I'm like, "Who the heck is this guy?" And then I'm following you on Instagram, and you have like some of the biggest names of all time. It's like. And you're a good looking guy, you got great hair, you got all that stuff. And you're interviewing like the top rock stars in all of the profession. I'm like, this is awesome. And then we asked you to come on to the COVID conference. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was in 5 minutes. I'm like, this guy is a superstar for the future. And it's Dr. Nate Lawson. Now, today we're going to be talking about a very important subject. I'm going to want to know your story as well as our listeners, but we're going to be talking about the life of a biomaterial researcher. You're going to explain what all this, but people are watching for the first time. If they've never heard you, I want them to know who Dr. Nate Lawson is. So who are you and where did you come from? Where are you? Give us the rundown.
So absolutely. So I'm here actually sitting in my office in Birmingham, Alabama. I teach here at the university. I'm the director of biomaterials at our university. Actually, if you can't tell, this is what in the South they call my Yankee accent because I'm not from the South. Kirk, you said you're in Milwaukee. I'm originally
in Milwaukee.
Where are you from originally?
I'm a cheesehead from I'm a cheesehead through and through. So yeah, you don't sound like you have an accent, but you know how it is. Anyone that doesn't talk like the local folks always has an accent, right?
Yeah. So this is my Yankee accent, but I'm originally from Chicago area. And so I came down to UAB. I'll kind of tell you a little bit more how I got down here in a minute. But so I've been down here since dental school, and then I came back and started teaching around 2014. And so kind of what I do in a typical day is mostly research. So we do a lot of industry-sponsored research with companies. We have a lab where we can test all the different kind of mechanical properties of the different composites and cements and adhesives. And then we have a research clinic where we can try new materials in patients and follow them up over a period of years. And then I also do a lot of teaching for the students and then externally, and then committees and stuff. And then I have also our faculty practice where I still see patients. It's not like a full-time deal. It's just a half a day a week, but it just still keeps me active in seeing patients. And it's funny because my wife's a lawyer, and she always whenever we go out and she tries to explain to people what Nate does, she's like, he's not really a dentist because he doesn't see patients all the time. He's not really a teacher because he only teaches a couple classes. And I'm like, what do you think I do? Just get paid, show up and get paid. So I was just explain to people my full. It's a number of a little bit of this and that, and I realized I love it. When I first came back and started doing this job, I didn't think it was going to be a full-time gig. Of course, pay is not as good in academics as it was because I practiced for about a year and a half before coming back and started teaching. But I don't think I could ever go back. Teaching is awesome. That's been really one of the most fun things about this job. And then getting to do the type of research that we do is very applied. So I get to mess around in the clinic and be like, oh, this didn't work. Let me think if maybe there's a way I could test it down in the lab and see if that will work, and then I can take it back up to the clinic and try it up there. And so, that's kind of been a fun process. And so that's kind of my role in the school, kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, I can relate with the whole your wife trying to explain what you do. My wife still doesn't know what I do, or my family. My neighbor thinks I sell dental supplies. I just go with it, type of thing. So not that, so, and then also too, I have so many questions. Like, did you always know you wanted to go in and I can tell you love it. Like, there's no question you love it.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually did think I was gonna be a dentist since I was in kindergarten. My mom's her sister's a dentist, her brother's an endodontist, and her sister-in-law is a general dentist. So like I was like raised since a child like with the idea of like you should be a dentist. So yeah, that was always my plan, was to go to dental school. I went to college and I did engineering. My dad's an engineer. I didn't want to take any foreign languages, so it was just like engineering was the way to get out of taking a foreign language. So, and I like math, so I did that. And then I applied to dental school. When I graduated, I was all ready to go start dental school. I was going to go to Penn for dental school. And I happened to be, when I was in dental school, I did research with a guy I'm sure you've probably run into in the dental world, John Burgess.
John Burgess.
Yeah. So
the granddaddy of all materials, right?
I know. So he was I just fell into this luck when I was in college in engineering, had to do a senior project, and I kind of strolled over to the dental school. I was at school at Tulane in New Orleans, and I strolled over to the LSU dental school and somehow lucked into being into his office, and kind of got this started off as like a research project, and then it turned into a summer job, and then I just kept on coming back and doing more and more projects with him. It's funny, actually, I worked for him 2000 and I guess it was 2005, 2006. I was working down in his lab, and there was this little hurricane that was coming down to Birmingham or to New Orleans. And he's like, Nate, why don't we go ahead and put like our specimens in little plastic bags? We had this basement laboratory, so put all the little specimens in plastic bags. Like left, went to Houston, thought we were just gonna play tennis for a couple of days and come back. And that was Hurricane Katrina, and the whole dental school flooded. Our whole lab was gone, and so like everything, everything was kind of gone. He ended up from there moving to University of Alabama, Birmingham, and to take a position there. That's when I applied for dental school. I was planning to go to Penn, and he called me and said, hey, Nate, would you ever consider like coming to Alabama for a summer and just doing a little research before you started? And I said, nah, I don't have no interest in going to Alabama. I'm cool. He said, well, I'll pay you a little bit. And I said, well, okay, I'll pay it, I'll come do it. Poor college student. So I went and started working for him over the summer. And while I was there, they said, hey, Nate, there's this thing called a DMD PhD program that you could do. And if you did this, it would only tack on an extra 2 or 3 years to dental school. You get a PhD, and it would pay for all of your dental school.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's a pretty cool deal. And so I thought about it for the summer. And at the end of the summer, I think I had like, what was it? He sent me on this trip to Germany to do a project at Seefeld, where 3M is located, or 3M SB is located. And I did a project with them. I thought, this is a pretty good gig. This is, I don't know if I'd get to do this kind of stuff if I wasn't involved in research. And so I came back from that trip, and I called Penn. I said, I'm going to stay in Alabama. I'll do the DMD PhD program. And so that was a program, again, sponsored by we had an NIH grant. It paid for my dental school and the PhD portion. It was 6 years, and I did the two things concurrently. And then, so that was kind of, I still though wasn't totally sold on this concept of academics and teaching. I was in my heart, I was like, oh, my family, is all dentists, and I saw what a good lifestyle that was, and I thought I want to do that. So I graduated, had a little quarter life crisis. I started a PROS residency, ended up not finishing that. I went to go work for a DSO in Chicago. That's where I started the PROS residency, and where I'm from. And so I did that for about a year and a half. And then Burgess called me again. He said, hey, Nate, what about coming back to Alabama? I was like, okay, maybe we'll try this again. And so I came back kind of with the intentions of maybe I'll do this for a year or two and figure out what I want to do next. And never thought I would like it so much. I mean, one little detail is I met my wife, and she's from here, and so that kind of, I was never going to leave, I guess now. But yeah, I just ended up just really loving the, like I said, the teaching has been super. That's been something that I got this little hint about that I might like this when I was in dental school. Like, I didn't love dental school. One of the things I'd really get excited about is we had presentations, and I got to go make a presentation, present in front of my class. Everyone else in the class hated that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh man, I cannot wait to make a little PowerPoint and present in front of the class. So that might have been a little clue that, getting up and, speaking in front of people, speaking, to the dental students or speaking and doing CE stuff is like, it just like, it gives like a little fire in me. It's like the most exciting thing I can do. So
yeah, we all agree. You've got the heart of a teacher. It shows. There's no question you've got a very bright future. I want to go back to, okay, so that's where the LSU thing is, because I was going to ask you, like LSU, you've had some powerhouses around, and that's where you got to meet. Did you meet Marco there, Marco Brindis?
Yeah, because I think it's funny because when I was I think that was maybe Marco might have been a resident at the time. I was I was just a college student. So I remember working down in this little lab, and I remember like Marcus Blatz would come downstairs and he would playing around on the machines, and I didn't know anybody from anybody. I'm just this stupid little college kid. I think I'd like yell at Marcus Blatz like, you need to sweep the floor with your specimens or something like that. I didn't know any better. So like, and yeah, I think Marco might have been.
Was Jerry Sheesh there too when you were
there? I never ran into him in I might have, and I probably again would have been like, I wouldn't have realized what was going on. Like to me, I was most concerned with making sure the floors were clean, and I was very, college summer job oriented. But yeah, that was the really cool thing about Burgess was he was very he's very trusting. Like I was just a college kid, and he put me in charge of running my own projects, and he sent me to the American Association of Dental Research every year that I worked with him, and presenting my stuff. So I think his philosophy has always been like, let people run, give them an opportunity and let them run. Some people sink, and if they swim, then he just kind of gave me a lot of free reign, which was really cool, and provided the support when I needed it. So
yeah, that is there. Such a great man. Now I have so many questions for you. I want to talk about the research part, like why biomaterials is such a hot topic. And again, if you guys are watching or listening, you got to check out Nate's Instagram page. I mean, it is phenomenal. I will let it personally interrupt me. Like I won't mention this. I hope my family's not watching, but there are times I'm like, Nate Lawson's live. Okay. I just got to see what he's talking about. Like it's awesome. So tell us about the research side. Why is this so important? I also do want to talk to you about how things might be changing in dental school, just everything. Like give me the state of the union. Let's start on the biomaterial side. Like explain what that is. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that it's funny to me because like people will come to me and they'll be like, Nate, like, how is it that you wanted to research biomaterials and teach biomaterials? Because when I was in dental school, like that was the most boring topic, and like they talked about the phases of amalgam and like they have horror stories of dental materials, and like to me, I'm just like, are you crazy? Like that was the only class in dental school that I got excited about. Like when they talked to us about like pharmacology and drugs, I was like falling asleep, or oral pathology and things like that. Like I could not be more bored. But like dental materials is like, oh, this is awesome. Like this is like the I guess maybe coming from an engineering background, it was just exciting, and it was like it was applicable to the stuff that we do in the clinic because you can't do anything without the biomaterial. So for me, I always just thought that was funny, like how anyone could see biomaterials anything other than exciting. But yeah, no, I mean the thing with biomaterials, it kind of seems like there's just constantly some different trends and fads, and you kind of have to stay on top of like what the newest type of area of research. Like when I started in my PhD program, Burgess gave me the stack of papers, and he said the newest thing is nanomaterials, and just read these papers about nanomaterials, and we're going to pick a project based on that. So I like did this, that was my whole research over the 6 years. We like found out, looked into nanocomposites, and that was a big thing. But by the time I graduated, the deal was like zirconia just like bust on the market with Bruxier came on the market from Glidewell, which was like that was the newest thing. And it was lucky that I had happened to been working on this machine to test wear of nanocomposites, and we just used the same machine to test wear of zirconia then. And so like when we published, it's still probably the most in the research world, most cited paper we ever did was looking at the wear of teeth opposing zirconia crowns. And it was just lucky that I was using the same machine, that there was another guy using the same machine, and he was looking at zirconia, I was looking at composites, and we just helped each other, and we wrote that paper together. So like, but yeah, times have gone along. There's always a new thing coming out. You just kind of stay on top of whatever the newest kind of trends are. One thing that in dental materials research is that unlike some of the more basic science type of research that's maybe funded by the NIH, most dental materials research now is funded by companies. So we have an interaction with companies. So like, and I think sometimes private practice dentists will have a perception of dental manufacturers, and research done with dental manufacturers that's, I think I see that relationship as like something we're kind of working on the same side, trying to make their products better, not as much like, we're trying to marketing or something, where it's kind of like a relationship where when we're getting the products and hearing about the products, they're not fully in development yet. So they're not fully developed yet. So we're kind of working with them to like figure out where maybe shortcomings of their materials are, so that we can help them, figure out if maybe it's just an instructions for use issue where they need to change something in the instruction for use, or maybe there's little flaws in their materials that can still be fixed before they take it out to market. So that's kind of we get to kind of see materials early and get ideas like where the future of materials are going to go, so we can be thinking of tests and things to measure of the materials before they come out.
It's so darn cool because, now, even with Bob Margis and all these guys are like, look, you don't need to cut all this virgin tooth structure to do what we used to do. Now the materials are getting better. I can't remember who said it during the conference, but they said materials is like technology. It's changed more in the last 5 years than it has in the last 20. Would you agree with that or not?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of I think that one of the big revolutions has been ceramic revolution. Like when I was in dental school, I only graduated in 2011. I didn't do any ceramic crowns when I was in dental school. And then now I was talking to some of the graduating seniors that graduated, I was talking to maybe 2 years ago, and there was half of them had never done a metal-based crown. Like half of them had never done a gold or PFM crown. They only did ceramic crowns. And so that's 10 years to see that transformation of like how big ceramics are. So that's like probably the main topic that I'll lecture on, is like about ceramics. And it's funny, like when I go and see my in-laws, they're always like, oh, what's the status of zirconia these days? They're lawyers, they don't care about zirconia, but they just think that that's all I do because they hear me say the word zirconia.
Cool word.
Yeah, it's a cool,
Yeah.
it's a good word. It makes them think I'm smart. So
Yeah.
but yes, I feel like that's been a big that's been a huge change. Everything they're doing with ceramics, like milling them, and now 3D printing is becoming a big thing. I don't think they're quite. There's some people that are experimentally trying to 3D print ceramic materials. It's mostly milling, but there's I feel like that's been a big change that's occurred over the past decade, I think, with the prevalence of ceramics.
Well, you've got an edge. Like there are a few people in dentistry that make the boring exciting. Like I can think of Zversky. He's the only guy that makes pathology funny. Like I will go and watch it and like Viola in pharmacology, it's hilarious, and it's entertaining. So you've got an edge. You can take something that's really mundane or, boring and just make it fun. Now I do want to go back. Like, let's talk about the reality of the situation. We're at a strange time. And, talk about the research side of things. Everybody's been impacted. Where do you see it now? Like when people ask, what do you tell them? And then where do you see the future of this? And anyone's guess is what the future is, but tell us what you're hearing as far as the current and future aspect of research.
Yeah, research, funding from our standpoint is one thing that we think about, and the health of our funding is going to be dependent upon the health of industry to be able to develop new products. And with dentists maybe not practicing as much, industry's not selling as many products, and so that's always something that concerns us. In the type of funded research that I'm doing. I was afraid things were going to be a lot worse than they were, but luckily a lot of time, I'm communicating with a lot of the companies that we work with, and they're still interested in making, they're still developing new products, and they're still interested in having the products tested. So I'm more optimistic than pessimistic. Like
Awesome.
It feels good. Like I was pretty sitting there, and during the quarantine months. Luckily, thank goodness for ACT for putting together the relief conference. I mean, that was just awesome. I mean, so cool. The big props to that. So that got me through, some of the otherwise depressing moments. But coming back, things are better than I expected them to be on that side of things with the industry. Talking about the dental school, I mean, that's a different.
Yeah, can we go there? Because I know in 30 minutes you're going to be rolling up your sleeves and talking to these kids. Give me this. This is a big chatter right now. What's happening in dental school from your perspective? I mean, these are great kids. They're eager to learn. Is it different? Is it not different? I mean, you're there.
Yeah.
Tell us what it's like.
So yeah, it's interesting. So like I kind of told you my role within the dental school is like I do a lot of the research. I kind of get to live in a little bit of my own bubble. So I have mostly interactions with the students in the didactic proportions, like teaching them in their courses. So like as far as like the clinical competencies, how the clinics are going, like I hear that from my friends who are teaching, like the two guys that I do our Instagram channel, Dental Tube, Lena Arce and Augusta Robles. They're like two of my just best friends, and like so we have lunch like every other day, and so I kind of get perspective from them about clinics, and it's just they're basically working at half capacity because they're trying to maintain every other chair to be able to give distance between patients. So I mean, I know that's going to be a challenge. I know in our clinical research where we're trying to recall patients, we have very number of patients skeptical about coming back into the school. But for me, the most interesting thing has been like trying to determine how the didactic component of online teaching, how effective that's been. And there's like components of it that I think have been really cool. Like we've had kind of like you were doing the COVID relief lecture series. We were doing kind of inter-school learning where we got lecturers that were from other schools, that either friends or people that we wanted to get in, and just asked like, hey, I'll do a Zoom lecture if you do a Zoom lecture. And I thought that was really cool. And we got to expose our students to some different thoughts and some just passionate teachers from other universities. There are some CE teachers, and like actually Bill Robbins is going to come and speak to our class in I think another 2 or 3 weeks. He's coming, and like I've pumped all the students up about that. It's gonna be so cool. But yeah, I mean, that I think has been a really neat thing. Sometimes though with the Zoom, I do have to wonder like if they're getting Zoom burnout, and if they can, how. I mean, I think we're all a little bit missing being in the classroom. I know as teachers, as faculty, we miss the feedback that we get from the students by being in the room with them and just looking at their faces and be like, okay, you're sleeping, okay, this isn't good, like we got to change something, or like you're into it and asking questions, like this is positive, let's keep it moving. So I think there's going to be like we're all kind of yearning for being back in the classroom, but again, there's decent amount of positive things with the Zoom. Like I can be from home teaching them. We can have impromptu meetings with people. We can bring in people from outside easily and get them to collaborate with us. So I think positives and negatives from the didactic perspective.
Yeah, I can't wait to have people over at my house again. Like if you were my neighbor, I would kick you out about 1 o'clock on a Friday night and say, "Hey, you got to go home." Like, but I think we're all missing the personal component, and I hope when it does come back, we overcorrect on the personal side of things.
Yeah.
I can't wait to be with Bill and Bob and all those guys again, and just sit at the bar and laugh our butts off. But I think it's just one of those things we got to deal with. There's no question there's a silver lining here, and it's helped us re-examine things. Now, I have to ask you, like, you have done a remarkable job of connecting with a certain generation. Now, can I ask you, how old are you? I've never asked you that.
Oh, I'm 36.
You're 36. You look like you're 26. Okay. Now, I want to say this too, because even when I was 36 or even 26, it would be like, well, some generations don't understand it. Speak to the like you've captured an incredible, you're a great leader. You're truly a key opinion leader for a certain generation. Tell us what we don't understand, maybe about the younger dentists. Like Instagram is still a struggle for me. I don't understand it. And I think it's very fair. You can't throw people under the bus and complain about it. And they just think different. Give us some perspective on, because you talk to them all the time. What are they motivated about? What do you want us to know about them? And what are you finding as you're talking to the next generation of dentists who are going to lead us?
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because like whenever you're a young dentist or young looking, I think that there's you're a little bit self-conscious about your age. Like that used to drive me, a little wild when people are like, oh, how old are you? You look so young. And then you want to be like, oh, I'm this age. I turned 30 or whatever. And then there's a period of time where I was like, oh, I'm just going to embrace this because yeah,
Absolutely.
I could be the young dentist for like maybe like another 5-10 years, as long as, if I can keep this, so like, I don't know. I mean, there's negatives, of course. Your patients, every once in a while, a patient will be like, when you're going to graduate, and I've been treating you for like 6 years. Like, do you not realize you're paying like faculty rates? Like,
Right.
okay, if you think this is student clinic, whatever. But like, yeah. So like, it took me a little while to like embrace this like concept of like, speaking to, my generation and then even the generation below. And yeah, I think that there's definitely some changes like between when I was in school. There weren't a ton of younger faculty members. I don't know if that's just like our school or if that's a universal thing. If there's like a gap where people didn't want to come back and teach again because you don't get paid as much, and the cost of dental school is going up, so it's hard for people to want to come back and teach. So I was kind of taught by a different generation. I mean, there just weren't people of my age teaching at the time that I was in there, and so yeah, I think there are some differences. I mean, one thing is, when we look at like social media, like Facebook and Instagram are kind of different ways of communicating. I think Instagram is like the 25 to 35 group, and then Facebook is going to be, 35 plus. Instagram's like a very visual, I have to work really, really hard, like to make a post that might just be one picture and like 3 paragraphs. You'd think, oh, that was easy because you just put one picture in 3 paragraphs. But it takes a lot of time to try to distill information and like get it to a learning point. But really though, it just kind of it is though getting information quickly and effectively. I don't think that people want to. I don't know if this is just our generation. This generation is more because of the internet and how fast our phones are. We want to get information quicker. So that was a big goal with Instagram, is to make quick learning objectives and to make it educational. I think that Instagram though is still kind of I don't know how much of an educational tool it is, because there's there's some content in there that isn't educational, that's just more for fun. But I think there's more and more accounts getting on there that are based on education. Facebook, I think, has also been a nice tool for education. There's some of these closed Facebook groups, like a big one is Dental Clinical Pearls or Dental Nachos or Clinical Hacks, and these ones where I think the thing that's really cool about that is I remember being fresh out of dental school. I was working as DSO, and I'd sit there and I'd have these clinical questions, and I didn't have anybody. There was one other guy that I worked with, and he was my age. I was actually 6 months. I was a year ahead of him, so I was the senior dentist, all with the ripe 1 year and 1 month of practicing, and he's been practicing for 1 month. So like there was not anybody I could go to ask these questions to. Again, my relatives are all specialists, so like to be able to have things like Facebook groups where people can go post and said, I saw a patient with a lesion that looked like this. What do you guys think it could be? Or I had this issue with an implant. Give me some feedback. I think that's been with the closed Facebook group. I mean, that's a really cool opportunity for mentoring. So that's I think those are between the Instagram kind of like quick visual resources, and then the Facebook kind of having this mentorship, which I think we're all looking for, some mentorship. And it's an introduction to mentorship, because the problem with Facebook is not perfect either, because you're going to get some unvetted opinions that might not always be right. And I think that was something that I learned too. When you get out of dental school, you're a little bit poor and you're a little bit cheap.
Right.
So like I wasn't totally ready to put some money into continuing education like I was. It took me a little while to realize like continuing education is just something. It's a part of like being a dentist, is you've got to, I think, invest a little bit into your education. Every time I've done it, I've been like, yeah, that was totally worth it. Like I should have done that sooner. But it's a kind of a tiptoeing in, sometimes with the social media, you can tiptoe into kind of continue education. But I think I think it serves a purpose. It's for the new dentist. It's great because it's cheap and it's accessible. And yeah, I guess that would be kind of my take on.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like the news comes way faster on social media. Unfortunate, like the Kobe Bryant thing, I saw an hour before we even saw it on TV or anything
Oh
like
yeah.
that. And even fortunate things, you're like, whoa, it just happens faster. And then it's anyone's guess what social media looks like in the future. But I do love the Facebook groups because I'm a part of many of them. And you ask a question, if there's a good steward of the community, you can see it's done really well. When it goes, because communities can get crazy. They can get weird. They can get negative. I mean, you need somebody to police it a little bit and just keep everybody helpful on that side of things. And again, I just absolutely love with you. For some reason, Instagram just seems a little bit more real, as where Facebook might be a little bit more political or negative. That's what I hear a lot. But
I can see that.
yeah.
Instagram is like it's the platforms are so different too, because sometimes people will be like, well, how do I want to get started in social media? Like, somebody that's a KOL might come to me and say, hey, Nate, you seem like you've really gotten into the social media. I want to kind of tiptoe into social media. Like, how do you suggest that I do this? I said, well, you can start an Instagram page and it will have your name and your face on there, and there'll be some people that will find you, and you have to, some people will follow you just for that, but you're going to have to come up with some kind of content if you want to engage new people. If you want to get a lot of people, a lot of engagement quickly and like get something out, a message out, like the closed Facebook groups are pretty good because the moderator's already built a forum and a group of people, and so you can post on there. You're not going to have the control of, of deciding who says what and moderating anything. I mean, that you're kind of at the whim of the moderators and the person that started it if they want to take down your comment or your post or modify it all. But like, at least you've got a wide reach of people to speak to. So Instagram starts off real slow. I remember at the end of the first year, we got, I think, 500 followers or something, and I was like ecstatic. I was like texting all the other guys like, we got 500 people following an account about Biomaterials. Like, this is crazy.
Now, how many do you have? You've
I was
got
like 50,000, like
crazy.
after the second year of doing it. So it was like, it starts off really slow. I think that to grow an Instagram account, like one of the things I've learned is, it's all about, to grow an account quickly, you have to have support of bigger accounts. So like we had a couple bigger accounts that looked at some of our content and shared it, and that's what grew our account, I think. So, and then just trying to pump out. I mean, it was a ton of work. It was a lot of content, and like I'm definitely cutting back on the amount of time that I can spend on that. Like we're looking for houses and like trying to do other things in life, and I think that I had to kind of, well, quarantine gave a little bit of extra time to make some of those crazy cartoons we put on there, but yeah, it does take a lot of work, but it's been fun. Like the best things that have come out of it, when like people from other schools have come like, dude, like I looked at your Instagram and I learned something that I couldn't learn otherwise because of some post, and I was like, okay, that was totally worth it. Like that's awesome. So yeah.
Yeah. So what else what would people not know about a biomaterial researcher? Like I'm just fascinated with your life and what you're up to. Like what else would we not know, or no one would have a clue to what it is that you do on a daily basis?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that just like what I kind of shared at the beginning, a little bit of like, and even I didn't understand like what a faculty member does, what they do all day sitting inside of their office. I mean, my day though was a little bit different than like my friends that teach in the clinic. I mean, I think that and it's taken me kind of a while to like figure out like what my role is in the dental school, like how where I want to focus. I think one of the things that that my newest project, like something my next big project, my department chairman runs this thing called the Practice-Based Research Network. He's my department chairman. I should probably say a little bit about it. I don't know if you've heard too much about
this. Tell me about it. I want to hear about this.
This is really cool. He has the largest grants in our entire university. So UAB is actually a pretty big healthcare system. They have a medical center and everything, and optometry school, all these different schools. and he's got the biggest grant they've ever had. It's like a $65 million grant from the NIH. And what the Practice-Based Research Network does is you subdivide that grant into smaller grants that would be kind of managed by individuals at other universities, or it could be someone in private practice. And when the smaller grants, they kind of farm out all of the research data collection to individual practices. So like, for example, I think one of the guys I talked to, one of the guys who I just really love, Jack Farrakane out of Oregon, like I think he was the PI on a study about cracked teeth. And so like they did a study where they were trying to enroll dentists throughout the United States to send them information about the cracked teeth that they saw in their practices, and try to correlate, you know, like if a cracked tooth is, if they see the crack, does it become symptomatic after so many years? We did another study about single unit crowns that was a guy named Michael McCracken out of our university headed it, and he enrolled 200 dentists across the United States, and they would do a single unit crown, and they would look at things like if the impression material they used, did that lead to a better, you know, could they get the impression on the first time depending on what kind of impression material did they use, and did it affect the fit of the crown, and what kind of cement did they use to cement the crown with? And so it's this big, they do all different kinds of little studies of clinically relevant stuff, and then it's done by practitioners all throughout the United States. They send all the data back to the primary investigator who's housed at, could be different universities across the United States, and then they collect all that data, and then they publish research based on that, and they house it in their Practice-Based Research Network website. So wow. I think one thing that's really cool about that is anybody's listening. Sometimes people come up to me like, hey, Nate, I want to come by and like do a research project at UAB. Like they might live in Atlanta. And I was like, dude, how are you going to do that? Like, I'll drive over there after work. I was like, okay, by the time you get here, it's going to be 8 o'clock at night. I'm going to want to go home. And, yeah. You know, how do you think you're going to do this research project at UAB? Like, it's all this paperwork. You'll never get it done. I was like, if you want to do some research and you're in practice, like this, you can enroll in the Practice-Based Research Network. It's free. They send coordinators out to your office to help show you how you can do this. And then, you know, if you like it, then some people have gone on to like present the research or write papers, or, you know, you could do this all as a private practice dentist. And it's called the Practice-Based Research Network. So my next goal, I want to be the PI on one of those, and I want to do one related to treatment of interproximal caries. So like the small cavities in between people's teeth. It's something I'm really passionate about because I have a little brother who's like 11 years younger than me, and he's like, when he was like 16, he had all these fillings done in between his teeth, and then now like now he's 26 or something like that, or 25, and I'm having to like redo all this dentistry on him, and it's like a real headache for him. And like those cavities started off really small, like maybe didn't need to have so many fillings done. And so one of the things I want to do in this study is kind of just track interproximal caries and see how quickly they grow, and like, you know, maybe when do we actually need to do fillings. And so that's kind of my next project. It's gonna I don't know when we're gonna I think that the grant's due in like November, and then hopefully if we get it, then we can start I'll probably be pushing that over social media, trying to find people to enroll in the study.
Hey, you come to me. We're gonna, as soon as you get that, we're gonna get you right back on, and we'll talk about the study and some of the conclusions and where they can find. Because I know people love this stuff. Now, there's so many other things. You're gonna do a masterclass for Act Dental U on, you know, the bioactives. Can you just talk about that? Why that's an important subject? What you're gonna be covering? And now this will be different. This won't be a conversation. You're actually gonna take us through slides and research. So tell us what that is.
So bioactives is like a topic that maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, kind of like I said, there's kind of trends in dentistry. And, you know, when I was in school, it was nanocomposites, and then it was zirconia. And the bioactives, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, became like the new hot word. Like, this is bioactive, that's bioactive. And it just, I think clinicians really struggle because, like, what does that even mean? And then we kind of found out, what does it mean? Like, maybe it, you know, it can, one thing is help release minerals. It can help prevent the surrounding restorations from getting secondary caries, and maybe it can also plug the gaps between a crown and at the margin of a crown, and all the claims. And we thought, well, where's the evidence that these things actually do the things that they're supposed to do? And so we started doing some of these research projects related to testing different types of bioactivity of dental materials. Maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, we had a student named Prajakta Kulkarni who was awesome, and she got a grant related to this from the Academy of Operative Dentistry, and we started testing. And then maybe 2 years ago, we had a resident, a guy named Chunta Huang, he was an amazing, awesome resident who did he kind of perfected Prajakta's technique of looking at the margins of restorations to see if you use bioactive materials, if it helped prevented them from getting caries, and this lab test that we did. And so what I want to do, what I'm going to do in the lecture is kind of go over, it's like been a 4 or 5 year journey of some of the tests that we've done to look at bioactivity of composites that are bioactive, cements that are bioactive, some even adhesives that are bioactives, and some bioactive liners, to kind of look at what can they do clinically, what are they supposed to do clinically, and what kind of research has been done, kind of focusing mostly on the stuff we've done in our lab to prove any of the bioactivity of these materials. So it's pretty exciting. My main lecture has always been talking about dental ceramics, and then I do a lecture about direct composites. And the bioactive has been something I mostly just did in the lab, and I never really put together a lecture. And then when Bill Robbins asked me to put the lecture together, Taysir Solomon, who's my biomaterials brother, he had just given the class 2 composite lecture. So I was like, well, I can't do that. And I think, I don't know, my ceramics lecture I've done so many times is I'm going to put together the bioactive lecture into a solid lecture. And I worked on it a ton over the quarantine. And then by the time I was done with it, I was like, man, this lecture is better than my other lectures. So it was kind of a cool thing that, that we worked out, that we, that Bill asked me for a topic, and he kind of liked this topic. So I'm I've given it now a couple of times to the students and residents and stuff, and it's been fun. And I'm excited to giving it for the master class, because I don't know, it just has so many questions about, I've had people ask so many questions about bioactives, and it really has been a 4 or 5 year journey of trying to just put together all of our research. But it's not when I lecture, it's not just research. Obviously nobody likes the bar graphs and the charts. So it's how do we use the research to make sure that the stuff that we're doing clinically actually works, and some things don't work. So that's another thing we'll talk about.
Well, we're so pumped and so blessed. And I'm just telling you guys right now, if you're listening, you're watching, this guy is phenomenal. You're looking at one of the future stars in this arena. And on September 4th at Act Dental U, he's going to be doing the bioactives. And then we're going to have you back again and again and again on the Best Practice Show as we cover all the interproximal, research, everything. I mean, I know for years, I'm tuning in on Instagram. I learn a ton, and it's so darn cool. Now, I got to say this. A lot of people that are watching or listening, they're going to want to know more about you, how to just follow this guy. Follow him where he goes. You're going to see great stuff. How can we get a hold of you? How do we learn about more? How do we get, because you do a lot of live Instagrams. So where do we learn more about you?
So our Instagram, our Instagram is called @dentaltube. Actually, if anybody's watching the video, we have a little sticker made of, that's our Instagram. And I share it with my two just really great friends, Augusto Robles and Celine Arce, and we meet and have lunch. We talk, what are we gonna do next? Who do we want to talk to? And so @dentaltube is an Instagram page. I have a web page for the speaking I do. It's just my name is drnatelawson.com. So, and it's got, and I give out my email. My email is nlawson@uab.edu. Sometimes I get these emails where you give a lecture and somebody will just email me out of the blue. There's at a lecture, but they don't necessarily introduce themselves. They'll just hey dude, what's the flexural strength of Panavia essays, or something like that, and it'll just oh, nice to meet you. But here it is. But yeah, so, I try as best I can answer any questions by email. But yeah, Instagram, drnatelawson.com or nlawson@uab.edu, and yeah, I'm around.
Yeah, and he is one of those guys that emails you back. I'll send you something, and it's I didn't even finish hitting the send button. He already responded. So it's good stuff. Okay. No, buddy, I'm so excited to have met you. I've watched you. You guys, You were awesome on the conference, and we couldn't be more excited to have you for the masterclass series coming up on September 4th. So I just want to thank you, buddy. And I want to have you back constantly just to talk about whatever you're excited about in that respect. Now, I know you got to run, so I want to be super respectful of your time, but I want to thank you, and stick around while we say goodbye to everybody. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. That's it for today on the Best Practice Show. If you enjoyed today, do us a favor, hit the share button and share it with your friends. Keep sending us suggestions for things that you want to see on your shows, either with Dr. Nate Lawson or other guests, and we'll keep bringing it to you every single week. We want you guys to get the most out of this stuff so you can create a better practice and a better life. And I'll be back again next week with another amazing episode of the Best Practices Show. You guys have a great rest of your day.